Hello, I'd like to introduce myself as Scylla de Lacy, an independent candidate running for the seat of Nedlands in the upcoming state election. Now, choosing to run as an independent candidate is actually an extension of a role that I held as the Mayor of Nedlands between 2019 and 2021, where I represented the people of the City of Nedlands, not a political party. I governed over a $35 million budget and a 12-member council. They had all types of political persuasions, those 12 members of council, and it had its moments and it had its fair share of work to negotiate outcomes. But it taught me a valuable lesson, and that is that it takes time. It takes time to bring about change. It takes courage. It takes a lot of listening and observing. Most of all, it takes accountability and transparency on the road to building trust with the people you serve. And trust in politics and politicians is at historical lows. There are various philosophical views as to why this is the case, and the outcomes globally are wild swings between the far left and the far right. There's overall dissatisfaction with the status quo, and the people are actually beginning to realise that they have more power than they think. And it's this power that I actually drew upon within our community to successfully challenge state government policy on underground power to make it a fairer, more cost-effective and more efficient policy than it was. So I am now seeking to draw upon that power again from our community to ensure that the policies enacted by the government and the laws passed in Parliament are founded on the principles of fairness and equity. And if elected, I will commit to creating advisory groups on the issues that matter to you to ensure that your voices are heard in Parliament. There are 3 reasons why I believe Nedlands needs me as its independent candidate in state Parliament. Firstly, to hold the 2 major parties to account. For example, late last year when the Environmental Protection Amendment Bill was tabled and passed into law, there were 2 aspects of the changes which were concerning regarding the independence of the Environmental Protection Authority's advice to the Minister. The first change is that the terms for the EPA board members have been reduced from 5 years to 3 years, which is now less than a term of government, which is 4 years. This could open the door for political appointments by the government to an independent EPA board, especially in the context of another change made, and that was the ability for the Minister to reissue at any time the ministerial statement of expectations to the EPA board. And both major parties agreed to these changes. Yet another independent authority that provides advice to government, the Economic Regulation Authority, hasn't had any such changes made to its terms of governance. It still has members enjoying 5-year terms, and it doesn't have to respond to a ministerial statement of expectations. So one wonders why. In the context of an impartial public service, this appears to muddy the waters. So an independent in Parliament working for you will have the ability to challenge this power grab from the major parties. It's greatly concerning that in the past 4 years, no amendment moved by either the opposition or the Greens on bills tabled in the upper house was passed. None. Further, the Legislation Committee, which usually meets and reports on any bills referred to it by the Legislative Council, only met once in 4 years. Once. An independent with my significant abilities around policy making and law making, who has drafted bills for state Parliament and has a degree in environmental law, will be able to ensure that the checks and balances on power such as this are maintained. The second reason you need me as your independent in state Parliament is the ability independents have had and have always had to ask those courageous questions in Parliament that must be asked to ensure there is transparency around decision making. So as a graduate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors and having sat on several boards, it's the role of those directors to ask the questions, and it's called noses in, fingers out. And as an independent, I will not have to toe the party line and refrain from asking such courageous questions. And on that note, anecdotally, I heard that some Labor backbenchers felt unable in the last term of government to question some aspects of the Environmental Protection Amendment Bill. This is not good for democracy. Now, the third and final reason why you need me as your independent in state Parliament is that unfortunately I have seen and experienced the behaviour of some members of the major parties who, for whatever reason, are incapable of working with the other side of politics. This attitude fails to recognise that ultimately our society does benefit from a democracy that has a sense of balance. And it's a sense of balance that just so happens to be the title of former Prime Minister John Howard's 2023 book, where he describes the need for balance within political parties and society, and particularly for bipartisanship. He also strongly condemns the pervasiveness of the career politician and the extreme factionalism of those major parties, decrying how there are often minimal candidates who contend for pre-selection because of those situations. So, no doubt, it's within that context that we have now witnessed the rise of the teal independents. However, given this phenomenon, it's not always clear when an independent is not an independent and a member of a political party in the sense of the teal independents. How have these candidates been chosen? Who are they ultimately answering to? And what is it that their major funding interest, Climate 200, has with these parties and these candidates? Well, if elected as your independent representative in state parliament, one thing I can say is that I don't have any vested interest pulling any strings behind the scenes. And I will be capable of sitting down with whomever forms government to negotiate outcomes that ultimately benefit you, the people of Nedlands. So in closing, ultimately a vote for me is actually a vote for democracy. Thank you.